You know, the thing about serving your country, especially in an EOD unit, going in to disarm the kind of things that make headlines, is that when you finally come home, the real war starts right there, in the parking lot of a mediocre diner in suburban Oregon. I'm talking about the Copper Kettle. Best darn key lime pie in Creekwood, but absolutely mediocre everything else. My name is Mac Riley, and if you saw me about a year ago, I was wearing a cheap apron and navigating the rush hour mess on 4 wheels. The IED that got me took half my right leg, but what it really took was my identity, my career, and, worst of all, the easy way back into my daughter's life. Skylar, my girl. She's 16, sharp as a tack, and carrying a suitcase full of teenage resentment. She was already mad at me for leaving, and when I came back in a chair, it felt like I broke her trust all over again. The argument was always the same. You chose them over us, Dad. She never saw the distinction between duty and abandonment. And honestly, some days, neither did I. So, there I was, working the busiest Friday night shift, trying to keep the coffee flowing and the tables cleared. It wasn't glorious. In fact, it was usually humiliating, but it paid the physical therapist. I was leaning over to wipe a spill near booth 7 when this guy, Trent, swaggered in. Trent was the kind of guy who peaked in high school football and now dedicated his whole life to reminding everyone else that they hadn't. He saw me, and his eyes just lit up with that specific, small-town malice. "Well, look at this," he drawled, loud enough for half the diner to hear. Mac Riley, the local hero, hustling mashed potatoes in the handicap section. I kept my back to him, focusing on the wet rag in my hand. "Evening, Trent. If you're not ordering, you're blocking the aisle." "Oh, I'm ordering," he said, pulling up right beside me. He had this cheap, obnoxious smirk plastered on his face. "Just admiring the work ethic, Mac. Must be tough trying to bust tables when you can't, actually stand behind the work. You're gonna make a mess. Why do you even take this job? Just leeching off that fat VA check, aren't you? They pay you to get blown up. They pay you to sit down. What exactly do you contribute now?" That was the line, right there. The one that always hit the hardest. It wasn't the pain in my stump that made me clench my jaw. It was the feeling of being utterly useless. But years of EOD discipline taught me one thing. Never let them see you sweat. You control the narrative, or the bomb controls you. Then Skylar walked in. She wasn't supposed to be there, but she always stopped by on Friday just to prove she had to be there, waiting for me to finish so she could be driven home. And Trent saw her. And that small, petty malice turned into something dangerous. "Is that your kid, Mac?" Trent asked, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "Tough break for her, huh? Having a father who traded being a real man for a bronze star and a glorified stroller." Skylar stopped dead in her tracks, mortified. She already hated the attention my chair brought. This was a public execution. I finally turned. My voice was low, flat, and colder than the ice in the soda machine. "You leave her out of this, Trent." He didn't listen. Trent had a strawberry milkshake, the kind that looked like a pink fortress of sugar, and he leaned in close to Skylar, pretending to look concerned. "Oh, dear me," he mocked, jerking his hand sharply. "My fingers must be playing tricks on me." The milkshake exploded over the front of Skylar's favorite denim jacket. Thick, cold, sticky pink sludge. Skylar gasped, staring at the mess, her eyes welling up not with tears, but with pure, boiling shame. And Trent? He just wiped his hands on his jeans, laughed, and walked out without another word. The whole diner went silent. My first impulse wasn't violence, it was apology. That's what a broken dad does. I rushed over, or rather, I wheeled over. "Skylar, honey, I'm so sorry. I'll get a rag. I'll get the manager. We'll clean this up." She didn't look at me. She just looked at the pink mess, and then she finally looked at me, and her eyes weren't just shameful. They were full of utter disgust. "It's fine, Dad," she whispered, her voice tight. "It's just another mess you have to clean up." That night, after I finally finished my shift, we were sitting in the truck in the parking lot. I'd offered to buy her new key lime pie, offered to drive her to the movies, anything to reset the night. "We could go see Furious 7, I suggested, trying to sound enthusiastic. "The critics hate it, but it's got that ridiculous action we both like." Skylar sighed, a dramatic, eye-rolling sound that only a 16-year-old can master. "Great. Another movie. All we ever do is sit and watch movies." "You know why, Dad? Because we can't do anything else. We can't go hiking like we used to. We can't even walk around the mall without that look, that pity, or worse, that disgust. She was hitting low, but she wasn't wrong. I felt the need to defend myself, but I chose my words carefully. I'm open to suggestions, Sky. Tell me what you want to do. We can try anything. I want to go home, she snapped. I'm sick of going out in public with you. It's too embarrassing. The word hung in the stale truck air, embarrassing. It was worse than Trent's insults. Those were the words of a stranger. These were the words of my own blood. I took a deep breath. Skylar, I said softly, I know things haven't been the same since I came back. She laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. You're kidding me, right? Nothing is the same since you came back. My entire life was turned upside down. I had to change schools. We moved to this tiny apartment. Mom works double shifts just to keep up. But I guess going halfway across the world to defuse bombs for people you don't even know was more important than being here for your family, wasn't it? The silence was deafening. I looked at her, at the anger shielding the hurt, and I knew I couldn't explain the weight of the mission, the sheer, terrifying necessity of preventing mass casualties. I just looked down at my hands, resting on the steering wheel, and then back at my daughter, whose face was a mask of cold fury. And look at you now, she finished, a cruel finality in her voice. I closed my eyes, remembering the dust, the heat, the metallic smell of explosives, and the faces of the soldiers I saved. When I opened them, I met her gaze, and I didn't apologize for my choice. It was worth it, I whispered. Every sacrifice, it was worth it. That night, we drove home in silence, the biggest, loudest, most painful silence of my life. The next morning, I woke up feeling like a punching bag that had just been stuffed back onto the hook. But the universe, it turns out, wasn't done with us yet. It had one final, brutal test waiting for us, a test that would redefine what worth it really meant. The very next afternoon, Saturday, I convinced Skylar to try the copper kettle again. A peace offering. We sat in a quieter booth near the back. Just the two of us. No bullies, no mess. Just trying to salvage what was left of our relationship over 2 slices of that famous key lime pie. We were barely 5 minutes into the pie, and Skylar was actually smiling for the first time in weeks when the back door slammed open. It wasn't Trent. This was different. 2 figures, faces obscured by cheap bandanas, guns drawn. They looked desperate, twitchy, the worst kind of amateur criminal. One was short and thick-set, let's call him Stumpy. The other, tall and wiry, Viper. Everybody on the floor. Viper screamed, his voice cracking with fear. Wallets and phones on the table. Move it. Move it. Chaos. Instant, deafening chaos. People were screaming, diving under tables, dropping ceramic plates. Instinctively, I shoved my chair back, putting myself between the main aisle and Skylar. I kept my voice low and steady. Skylar, under the table. Now. She didn't argue. She scrambled underneath, her eyes wide, locked on mine. The robbers started sweeping through the booths, grabbing anything they could. I watched Viper move. He was terrified, holding his weapon like a prop. I instantly recognized the weapon, a beat-up Colt M1911, a classic .45 ACP. Powerful, but in the hands of an amateur, extremely unpredictable. Viper got to my table. Wallet. Give me your damn wallet, old man. And that watch. I reached slowly into my inner jacket pocket. It's in here. Just be careful with that thing. Viper looked up, startled by my lack of panic. Careful? What the hell you talking about? Careful? Your Colt, I explained, nodding at the pistol he'd quickly stuffed into a duffel bag, right alongside the wallets. You should be careful putting it in that bag like that. It's smart, kinda. No fingerprints on the gun, no gunpowder residue on your clothes. But you fire off one shot in that enclosed space, inside a textile bag? That cordite smoke, the unspent powder residue, the whole bag's going to ignite. You're going to flash burn your own hand right off. The other robber, Stumpy, stopped what he was doing, eyes widening. Viper, however, just bristled. Dude, what's your deal? You trying to look tough, wheelchair? Maybe one bullet is all I need to shut you up, huh? I didn't flinch. I just locked eyes with him. My training kicked in, the years of staring down things that were supposed to vaporize me. I wasn't Mac Riley the busser anymore. I was EOD specialist Mac Riley, analyzing the threat, assessing the failure points. Then, the true horror. Viper glanced down, saw Skylar huddled beneath the table, and a flash of pure, wicked malice crossed his face. The same malice I'd seen in Trent's eyes yesterday. He didn't see a human, he saw leverage. "Is that your daughter?" Viper sneered, pulling the gun back out of the bag, holding it steady for the first time, and pointing it directly at Skylar's head. "I'm gonna put a bullet in her first. See how much that service medal means then." A cold switch flipped in my brain. All the pain, all the shame, all the resentment Skylar had poured on me. It vanished. All that remained was the primal, Navy EOD instinct. Protect the asset, neutralize the threat. "You don't point that gun at my daughter," I warned, my voice still quiet, but carrying the unmistakable weight of command. "You can't do nothing to stop me, old man." Viper taunted, tightening his grip. That was the moment. The fraction of a second when years of intense, high-stakes military training took over my body. My injured leg, my useless chair, it all became irrelevant. I didn't think about the pain. I thought about geometry. The closest line to the target. I exploded out of the wheelchair. It wasn't a leap or a struggle. It was a practiced, precise vault of movement. I launched myself across the table, one functional leg providing the torque, my body a blur of muscle memory. I hit Viper mid-chest before he could even register the movement. The gun went flying, sliding across the tiled floor with a metallic ring. We crashed onto the ground. I had his wrist pinned instantly, a classic restraint move, the kind that snaps tendons if you resist. I was breathing hard, but I was focused. The fear I had felt, the fear of being useless, the fear of Skylar hating me, it was all channeled into raw, protective force. Stumpy, the other robber, fumbled with his gun, trying to decide whether to shoot the customers or intervene. The sight of his partner being expertly subdued by a guy who was supposed to be disabled broke his nerve. He froze. I slammed Viper's head against the tile just hard enough to stun him. "Weapon secure," I bellowed, the training language escaping my lips. I looked up at the shocked customers. "Ma'am, call 911. Get the police here now." The rest was a blur of cuffs, sirens, and flashing blue light. But the real moment happened a few minutes later, in the parking lot again, as the chaos subsided. Skylar was standing beside me, holding onto the armrest of my wheelchair, tears finally streaming down her face. "I'm still shaking," she whispered, trying to catch her breath. "I can't seem to stop." How did you do that, Dad?" "You were the only one in here who wasn't scared witless." I leaned in, cupping her cheek, wiping the wet streaks of her tears and the last remnant of the strawberry milkshake. "Are you kidding me, honey? I've never been so scared in my entire life." "But you could have died," she insisted, her voice trembling. "I know," I admitted, my voice husky. "I was scared of losing you, Skylar. That was the only thing I was truly afraid of." She looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time since I came home. And then, the dam broke. "Dad, I'm sorry," she choked out, burying her head in my chest. "I'm so sorry I've been such a jerk to you. I was so mad at you for getting injured that I never stopped to think about what I almost lost. I almost lost you in that war, and I just stood here hating the chair instead of loving the man in it. I should have never said those things." I held her tight, feeling the years of distance melting away. "It's okay, kiddo. It's okay. We're safe. That's all that matters." The truth is, Skylar saw the full picture that day. She didn't just see a disabled busser. She saw the warrior, the protector, the man who was trained to run toward the blast. And what she finally understood was this: I didn't choose a mission over my family. I chose a mission so I could protect the world, which included my family. That duty, that discipline, that skill, was what saved her life in the end. It brought everything full circle. My relationship with Skylar isn't perfect now. No, that's life. But it's honest. And that day, something Trent called a disgrace became the very thing that made me a hero in my daughter's eyes. Maybe I'm still a busser in a chair, but I'm a busser who can clear a room faster than a SWAT team. And that, my friends, gives you a whole new level of confidence. So, let me ask you, what is the most powerful moment of redemption you've ever witnessed? Was it someone who overcame a physical limitation, or someone who finally made peace with a decision they regretted? And if you're a veteran or related to one, What's the one thing people never understand about the sacrifice? Drop your stories in the comments below. Let's talk about what worth it really means. Don't forget to like and subscribe if this story hit home. We'll see you next time.